Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of FFC&Me. I'm your host, Ash Wolford. Thank you so much to everyone who's been sharing and liking the show. We've had a really good, steady growth of viewership in the last couple of weeks, which is great. The show is now available on YouTube and on some other podcast providers, but mainly on Spotify. So I really hope you guys do enjoy listening as well as watching. On this week's episode, I'm joined by Tom Dorsett. We learn what it's like to be a Fulham fan living in Wakefield, growing up going to games with his dad and his granddad, and what it was like being a mascot and outpacing Andy Melville. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. It was a great chat with Tom. It was really, really fun to sort of learn his history and what it's like supporting Fulham for him. I hope you guys enjoy the episode as much as I did making it. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome back, Tom. How you doing, mate?
I'm not bad, Ash. How are you, pal?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how old you are, where you're from.
Yeah, so my name's Tom Dorsett. I'm 30 years of age and I'm from Warrington. So as you can tell, this accent isn't very Fulham. So I'm very much a Northern Fulham fan.
How long would you say you've been a Fulham fan for?
Well, my first game was Macclesfield away under Kevin Keegan, and we won 1-0 with a John Solarco free kick winner. So I believe if that's the first game I remember, I would have been about 2 or 3, and I'm 30 now. So what, 27, 28 years? Something like that.
And who did you sort of go to those games with?
It's always been my dad, and it would have been my late granddad as well, because my dad and my granddad are originally from Fulham, so they lived in Harwood Road, which I believe my local knowledge of Fulham isn't fantastic, obviously, because I'm not there as often as you guys are, but I believe it's closer to Chelsea than it is to Fulham. But obviously, we made the right choice. Well, my granddad made the right choice, and his dad before he made the right choice, and supported the only team in Fulham, and then obviously give me the gift of Fulham. Uh, Growing up. So yeah, it would have been my dad and my granddad, my late granddad.
Would you say that your dad and your granddad were like the main influences on
Oh,
you then
absolutely, yeah,
becoming a Fulham fan?
absolutely. Because I heard stories as a kid from my granddad about Tosh Chamberlain, Johnny Haynes, Graham Leggett, Tony Macedo, Bobby Robson. You know, all the greats we've had over the years. George Cohen, my granddad loved George Cohen. To be fair, I would have loved it if he'd seen the statue. It would have maybe brought a tear to his eye if he was around for when the statue was erected of George Cohen. But yeah, listen, uh, my dad had a love for it, my granddad had a love for it, and it just once it's in you, it's in you, innit? I think I remember doing an interview for university for my final project, and I found another Fulham fan who was from Wigan or grew up in Wigan, and he said, "With Fulham, you don't choose to support Fulham, you're invited," and I think that's very true. You know, it's through family or through a friend or we're a special football club, and yeah, I wouldn't be anybody else.
Yeah, well, to be honest, it's unlikely to be you're sort of bought in because of success, is it? It's not. It's not. We're not
Well,
really the football club to support if you're wanting to be a bit of a glory hunter.
we've had a few decent years. I mean, let's not forget we've had over my lifetime. It's probably been the most successful period of our history, to be honest. But yeah, you're not going to pick them if you want to win every week. Let's put it that way.
Well, unless you sort of become a Fulham fan the last sort of 10 years, 10, 15 years, you're not used to, you wouldn't have seen some of the sort of the darker times. So
No, no,
I started going
no.
to Fulham. I started going to Fulham in the early 90s. So I remember when
Yeah,
Craven Cottage was literally falling apart, and
yeah,
there was
yeah,
four
yeah,
thousand fans there every
yeah,
week. So to
yeah,
see what it's like now
yeah.
is dramatically different.
Well, the first
Um,
season I
uh,
remember properly. Sorry to interrupt you there, Paul.
no, that's fine.
First season I remember properly would have been Kevin Keegan's season. It's the first season I vividly remember. And funny enough, actually, this week I've just learnt that my sister works in a bar in the northwest, and one of her regulars is Kevin Keegan and his wife. So I'm going to try and get down there and have a chat with Kevin about his Fulham years if I can. But yeah, that's the first season I vividly remember, and the players, Paul Pescasilido, Jeff Horsfield, Cookie, Kit Simons, Mike Taylor, even those crazy names that we had. Like we had that South African keeper for a bit. I don't know if you remember, like Andre Arisende, what his name was, and he was just a bit mad. We had him for a bit, and like
Yeah.
Philippe Albert turned up at the cottage, and all these massive names, and Dirk Lehmann, the German porn star. So yeah, that was a season I vividly remember as my first season, really.
I think like when you think back to those Kevin Keegan days, I think one of the names that always stands out to me is like Karl-Heinz Riedler,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
how the hell we managed to sign somebody who'd played European football for Liverpool to
yeah.
come play for Fulham in the second division was beyond me.
Well, Peter Beardsley as
I
well.
don't
He was a massive name as well.
yeah. I don't know if you remember, but like pre-season we played
Yeah,
India.
yeah. I've got the
In
video. I've got
the
the
pre
season
Yeah,
video, and it's the first thing they show you.
yeah,
They show you we had a friendly against Hamburg in the yellow demon kit, and we had a friendly at home against the Indian national team, didn't we? Yeah, and
yeah. It
yeah,
was
it's amazing time. And like I say, I've got those videos from like Division Two and when we won obviously the championship the first time under Tigana, and I still watch him to this day, like pure nostalgia, absolutely brilliant. And the commentary is just proper funny. Like it's not Jim, but it's a commentator that was before Jim. And I remember one line he said about, do you remember Gus Uhlenbeek?
yeah, yeah.
He scored a goal at Warsaw, and this line of commentary stuck in my head forever. He goes, "The man from Suriname with a Brazilian type effort," and it was just so funny. Proper 90s commentary, brilliant.
Proper 90s commentary.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
fantastic it was.
So thinking about now, what's your sort of usual match day routine? How, if you're lucky enough to come down for a match, what would you usually do?
Usually it would have been when my dad lived in the UK. He now lives in France. So usually it now is a case of my dad will find a flight to come over, and we'll pick a home game that sort of suits around his career, and obviously when I'm free. And then I'll go down the night before. So with my dad, I'll meet him at the hotel or whatever, wherever we're staying. We usually obviously try and stay around Putney Bridge if we can, but obviously sometimes we've stayed in Wimbledon and a bit further afield. But then on match day itself, obviously it's a case of you know get up on a reasonable time, all that stuff. But we've got a lucky sort of Lebanese cafe on Lower Richmond Road. It's called Julia Domna Cafe. It's called, and every time we've been in, we've had like unbelievable results. Like the last time we was down for a game this season would have been Bournemouth at home. My dad won sort of a hospitality package through his company, so it's the first time I've done hospitality. But so we didn't manage to get in there beforehand in a Julia's cafe. It's like a little Lebanese deli, and the food's amazing. Honestly, shout out to Julia Domino, it's amazing. Um, and we obviously had a poor result. That was it weren't a great game for us, and we managed to get a draw, but it wasn't like a great result. But every other time we've been in, we've done like the Luton one was 7-0. We've done like a 5-0. I think one of the games went on my birthday and we won like 4-1 or something. So she's a bit of a lucky charm for us, Julia Domna. It's just round the corner from the Duke's Head on Lower Richmond Road, and then we'll walk over Putney Bridge, walk through Bishop's Park, and to the greatest stadium in this planet. So that walk through Bishop's Park, whether it's cold, dry, raining, snowing, whatever, it just gets me every time. I feel like a kid every time I go. I'm 30 now, but every time I go a game, I feel like I'm 5, 6 again, and getting my program and getting. I get really jittery. Like I'm like, oh, we got to get in the ground, Dad, and it's like 2:30. What do you mean we've got to get in now? We've not even nowhere near kick off, but I want to be in like as soon as possible, as soon as I get there, and we'll get in. Obviously, get to seats, and then we'll be there for the game. Usually, when my granddad was around, bless him, it would have been we would have had half-time sandwiches courtesy of my nan. So my dad and my granddad would have had sort of like ham bars, and I would have had milk roll. Do you remember milk roll? Um, that
Just
that
about, yeah.
that bread, I would have had that on a sandwich, and my dad would have had. My dad and my granddad, he had like a coffee flask, like a really old coffee flask. So we would have had that, and I would have, been given a fruit shoot or something. But yeah, nowadays it's just me and my dad when he gets a chance to come over. I'd love to sort of do some away days by myself, really, because obviously Northwest, I'm brilliant for away days, but I've not really got the confidence to turn up on my Todd, to be honest. So I might have to start sort of like a Northwest fan group or something. I don't know.
Well, for a normal match day, I think that's pretty good. See, I'm one of those people that I don't have a set match day routine. I used to, but sort of since I've had kids, it's massively changed. I don't usually have
Yeah,
enough time to go to the pub and stuff anymore. So
yeah,
usually I'm sort of rushing in not to get in from Croydon and then get to the game on time, and
yeah,
that's about it. The most I get to do now is I get to enjoy the walk through the park, which is obviously, it's pretty special. And it's one of those ones I spoke about a couple of times on this pod with other people that I've interviewed, that uh, that walk is amazingly special, and I think it gets lost on
mm,
a lot of people
yeah, yeah,
just how good it is. And
yeah,
one of the things I've noticed this year, is especially since they've taken down two of the floodlight towers, is you don't have as much sort of light coming into the park from the floodlights as you used to. So I used to get really excited when you used to get about halfway through the park, where the little skate park and the play area
yeah,
is, and
yeah,
you see
yeah,
like the
yeah,
first,
yeah,
you see like the first like
yeah,
signs of light from the stadium.
yeah,
Then that's when I
yeah,
used to start getting really
yeah,
really
yeah.
excited.
Well, funny enough, that skate park, according to my dad, used to be a swimming pool, like a communal swimming pool, and my dad used to sort of swim in there as a kid, like him and his sister, him and me auntie. So I didn't know that, but he obviously told me that, and yeah. But one of my friends actually works for Man United. He's part of their sponsorship department, and this season he went down for the away game at the cottage, and he just sort of messaged me the next day and said, "I absolutely know what you're banging on about now with Craven Cottage. Like, I'm in love with the place. You've been saying it for years to me, Tom, and I've never believed you. But it's the best away ground I've ever been to, and I think so many away fans feel that. And obviously, when you're a home fan, that I don't even know how to describe it. That euphoria and just sense of this is where I belong. And as soon as you, like you
Yeah,
say, as soon
yeah.
as you see the floodlights, as soon as you see Stevenage Road and the brickwork and the Fulham Football Club on the side of the cottage, it's just absolutely magical place. Magic.
On a match day when you attend, do you have like is there a certain area of the ground that you tend to sitting always, or you sitting sort of anywhere around that you can get seats?
I think we've done all the stands. We've not done the new Riverside yet. I think it's on the list to do at some point. But we're mainly Hammersmith End. Um, yeah, mainly sitting there. One because me and my dad quite like a cheer. I'm exceptionally loud just talking anyway. So when I cheer, I'm even louder. But obviously, it's weird for me actually. I get a tinge of, I don't know, a tinge of sort of Fulham comes into my accent when I'm at a game. I go just a tiny bit London comes in from somewhere subliminally. I don't know how, because I'm the most northern boy you're ever likely to meet, to be honest, with this accent. But yeah, usually we're Hammersmith End because, well, we've had some brilliant nights in Hammersmith End. But to be fair, the European nights, Juventus, Hamburg, we was in the Putney End, which was unbelievable as well. But overall, Hammersmith End is the place to be for me and my dad.
Yeah, so I sit in Hammersmith too. I sit at the back of sort of H4 by
Yeah, yeah,
H3. Um, and I sort of when I was younger, there was a couple of seasons when we had season tickets in the Riverside.
yeah, yeah,
But what used to happen is this is obviously back before we had seats in Hammersmith. So me and my cousin would sit with my auntie, who used to take us to the games in the Riverside for the first half, and then the second half, we would go into the Hammersmith and stand behind the goal, because obviously that's the goal that we would traditionally be attacking
yeah,
in the
yeah,
second
yeah, yeah,
half.
yeah, yeah,
So Hammersmith was always sort of the place when I sort of started buying my own ticket, was naturally going to be where I wanted to sit as
yeah,
well. And it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
because I'm particularly loud, because I don't think I am, but I do occasionally like to shout and lose my rag, and you get sort of
yeah,
look,
yeah.
you get looked at slightly differently in the Hammersmith end as you do in other
Well, it
stands
was funny because
for doing that.
obviously,
So it's okay for me. When you say, obviously you say you go with your dad, and then the tradition is that he obviously would have come with your granddad and you came with your granddad and stuff like that. Um, so obviously, and I know now say your dad lives in France, so it's not so easy to get over to games. Um, what would you say, when you sort of think about going to football with your dad, is the most important thing about being there? Is it the experience of being there with your dad, or is it just a case of you both love football, so it's like it's like a mutual love of what's going on in front of you, or would you say it's sort of a mixture of the both?
I think I think the thing with me and Fulham is I always say to myself, it's the love of my life that'll never leave me. Just that shared connection I have with my dad and my granddad, but also the shared connection I have with just Fulham fans I've met just from celebrating goals. Like I remember Johansson scored one when we was in the FA Cup against Hull, I think, and these Norwegian lads had come over. I mean, I just ended up like going absolutely ballistic with these Norwegian lads that I'd never met before in my life, and it's just that massive sense of just a sense of belonging. Like I don't feel that sense of this is where I'm meant to be anywhere else than when I'm at Fulham.
So yeah, no, I agree that obviously football is it's like I've met hundreds of people from football that I only know from football. We probably wouldn't ever choose to hang out with each other outside of football. But and they're not even people that necessarily that I speak to on a personal level. But you see each other on a match day. You know, you give each other a hug, you say hello. You know, you wish them well, and you obviously always wish people well that you sort of get to know. And it is quite amazing at how many sort of relationships you gain with other Fulham fans because of that.
Yeah, yeah,
One of the reasons why I started doing this is because I really like that because it's like it's nice to sort of know people.
yeah,
And I've always been interested, especially having more as many sort of Fulham mates as possible because I know you say you grew up in the north, but I grew up in southwest London, and I was still the only Fulham fan in my school year. So like it's like
well, try try the whole
it's one of
school,
the
mate. For me,
it's one
try
of
the
the
whole town
things.
now.
So yeah, so it's one of the reasons why I started this because I think it's important, especially if you're local or you're like not local to London or you're sort of abroad or international fans as it were, that it's good to know that you can still grow friendships and sort of communities around sort of being Fulham fans, which is sort of great. We'll go back into sort of the questions in the getting to know you section. Some of the sort of more funny questions I love to ask people is we always know that being a Fulham fan, there's not loads of us. It's not like being a top six fan where you see people all over the place.
Yeah,
Where's the sort of weirdest place you've bumped into another Fulham fan?
that's a question and a half, Ash. That is a question and a half. The one that springs to mind, even though I didn't necessarily bump into them, as in, oh my god, you're a Fulham fan too, was I saw another Fulham shirt last year at the neighbourhood weekend in Warrington, where I'm from. I was like, oh my god, he's got a Demon Internet shirt on, and I was like, look, he's got a Fulham shirt on. There's another one. To my mates, but that's probably the weirdest. But I don't, because obviously being sort of this neck of the woods, I'm very unlikely to bump into anyone else with a Fulham shirt on or something like, or just Fulham memorabilia, I suppose. But I'd say the maddest is probably our most strange place would be the weekend. Yeah, is where I'd say.
I see. It's funny because like I always get really really excited when I see other Fulham fans. Not in the
Oh
sense that
yes, sir.
I'll not in the sense that I'll run them down. I'll be like, oh my god, you support Fulham, but in a way that I often like we've had it before where like, I was on holiday with my wife and we were in Madrid and we were walking through the sort of like the mayor's centre
Oh
and
yeah,
there
yeah,
was
yeah,
another guy there with a Fulham hat on as we were
yeah,
walking through, and I sort of like nudging my wife. Oh, there's another Fulham fan. There's
yeah,
another Fulham fan. But
yeah.
funny enough, the guy saw me, so I was wearing a Fulham fan. He isn't actually a Fulham fan. He's an Atletico fan.
Oh
But
right,
he was like
okay.
but after the final, he sort of started following Fulham as well.
Oh, fair enough.
But so like that was kind of interesting. So what was me spotting a guy wearing a Fulham hat or two just random strangers wearing a Fulham hat ended up in
Yeah,
like a 20-minute conversation in the middle of like Madrid town centre, which was pretty cool.
yeah.
Which is one of those reasons why I always ask those questions because I always get one because I always wonder people get as excited as I do when they
Oh yeah,
see other
definitely.
Fulham
Yeah,
fans.
yeah.
So it's always cool. And then obviously the last question in the getting to know you section, which is my classic one, which is sort of, do you have any superstitions or rituals or anything you have to do on a match day in order to sort of feel like everything's going to be okay?
Me and my dad, well, me particularly, but more, it's come from my dad, are ridiculously superstitious. So every game, it's always one finger crossed, never two, always one. I'll wear this either one of two pairs of Fulham socks. It's either FFC or Johnny Haynes. I'll find them. I'll wear a home kit if we're at home. If we're away, I'll put an away top on. And also when me and my dad are communicating via WhatsApp about the game, I'll send him the exact same list of emojis every time we speak about Fulham. So yeah, I'm a nightmare for it. And even with obviously the recent game at United, the less said the better, obviously. But I went full black and white that day for Mother's Day. I had a pint of Guinness and my Fulham shirt on. Was full black and white, ready for it. I'll touch wood before a corner. I'll do like a little thing and touch wood before a corner or a set piece or whatever. And I'll say like, "Come on, Andreas," or "Keep it out, burnt," or "Get out." So yeah, I'm a nightmare for it. I'm an absolute nightmare. Um, some days it works, some days it doesn't, but I do it every single game nonetheless.
Yeah, see, I only have two superstitions, right? So I will never wear a football shirt on a match day. Which
Okay, that's
anyone who's listened to
interesting.
anyone who's listened to these interviews before will sort of they would have heard that I've never I wore a Fulham shirt one time as a kid to a game and we got beat 5-0 and I was like I'm never
Right,
doing that
okay.
again.
Fair enough.
So no,
Fair
so
enough.
I've never worn a football shirt to a game. And the other one I have is that me and my cousin always before a game starts we always shake hands and say the score's going to be 3-1.
Okay.
Don't know why we do it. We did it one time and we won 3-1 and we've been doing it for years ever since. It doesn't work, but but
It's just funny, innit, things that
it's just
stick.
it's what yeah it is. I always like asking that question because you always get a good understanding of where people's heads are at, especially around sort of match days and what they think that
Yeah,
what they can influence and what they can't.
yeah. I'm ridiculously emotional with Fulham. Like, if we win, I'm euphoric. Well, obviously most football fans, but if we win, I'm euphoric. But if we lose, and depending on the way we've lost, I'm an absolute nightmare. Like my mum used to hate it if me and my dad had been to a game and we'd not won, because we both come back exactly the same. Both be just like, leave me alone. Like we've just been all the way to, I don't know, Newcastle or Sunderland or something, or even like Bolton or something, and we got beat, and the referee had robbed us or something or whatever, and would just be awful. Like I'm terrible. It just infects my whole weekend. But whereas if we won, I'm the happiest guy around. Like I'll be buzzing for like days. So it's a massive emotional sport in it, and I think obviously we've seen that last weekend. But yeah, I'm mad for superstition, like, and it'll never change. And hopefully, when I have kids, I'll pass on them what the one thing across and this stuff we did. Me and my dad do, and the stuff me and my dad and my granddad would do as well. Like my granddad would always wear this Fulham cap that didn't fit him, but regardless, he'd always wear it, and he'd have like a Fulham fleece on. And yeah, we seem to be quite a superstitious family when it comes to Fulham. But I think I've got it probably. I think I've took it to the most extreme, to be honest.
That's it. It's a funny thing you should say about sort of the reaction after games and sort of how it affects your whole weekend and stuff. I think sport does that naturally, but I am only really bad after watching games on TV. If I go to a game and we're bad, I'm usually by the time I get home, I'm okay. But if I watch it on TV and it really does affect me, I didn't go to Man United on the weekend.
Yeah, never do I know.
I didn't speak to anybody all of Sunday night and basically
Yeah,
spent
yeah,
all of Monday, every 15 minutes, sort of no matter what I was doing, stopping and just like
yeah. I
sighing
know.
to
I
myself,
know.
like trying
Yeah,
to work out
yeah.
what was going on. So I get the being absolutely terrible at sort of getting over it. And it's funny you should say about when you win and how it affects stuff. There is nothing like winning on a Friday, like when Friday night games happen. You win
Oh
a
yeah,
game on a Friday night.
absolutely.
Those weekends are always epic. Even if you do nothing, they're always
Yeah,
really great
yeah.
weekends.
Like it
So,
depends how
so
we've
it's
lost
funny.
for me. If we've lost, like if we played well, we've lost. I'm all right. But if we've lost to like I don't know that bus stop in Hounslow, or we've been robbed, or just like it's just a shitty little loss, and like it's come out of nowhere, and we've been playing really well, and it don't make any sense. Or just we've been done by referees. Those are the ones that do me. Like I'm awful. Like obviously with the United one this week. Oh, obviously on Monday. All my mates are United fans, so I've had it from my mates. I've had it from work, and it's just like I don't want to talk about it. You don't know what you're about. Shut up. Mitro's not hard. It's his first red card in 5 years. Shut up. Go away. Don't want to talk about it. Because obviously, for me here, I've got defenders to the hilt. No matter what. And I've done it since I was a kid. Like, since I was a kid, it's always been like, oh, Fulham are rubbish, support Man United, blah, 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 blah. But, even all that peer pressure as a kid in, like, primary school, high school, never change. I think if you cut me, I'd probably bleed black and white. I'd like to think I do anyway.
Well, it's funny you should say that about sort of peer pressure, especially around kids. As I say, I grew up in South West London. My secondary school was in Putney, right?
Yeah,
And I'm the only Fulham fan in my year that I
doesn't
knew
make
of,
any sense.
right? And I had it all the time where people were being like, "I don't get why you support Fulham. Fulham are rubbish. Like, you should support Chelsea, or you should
Yeah,
support Man United, you support
yeah,
Liverpool." It's like, and even then, as sort of like a 12-year-old, you sort of turn around and saying to people, "It's like, look, I'm 12 years old. I've been going to Fulham since I was literally a baby,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
You don't.
yeah,
I get that you probably don't understand the love because it's not based around the victories or the glory.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
based around an absolute passion and love
Absolutely, yeah,
for a football for
yeah,
a football club. But it's funny because it's like it's weird. Like my daughter has that now. My daughter's 10, right? And we live in Croydon, so everyone around us is either Palace or Big Six.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right, so she's the only Fulham fan in her year at school,
yeah.
but she'll argue with the boys all the time when
Get
they're
in.
just, "Oh, Fulham are rubbish." She'll
Yeah,
be like, "I don't
yeah,
care. Like, stop
yeah,
talking. I don't care."
yeah. Get in.
So yeah, so I think that's cool. But that's the getting to know you section, Tom. It's great,
Yeah, yeah,
obviously, to go through that. We're going to move on to your top threes, which is obviously the section that everyone knows is these are all about your personal preferences. So there's no right, there's no wrong answers. Anyone who's watching or listening in, feel free to sort of comment on the video whether or not you sort of agree with them or not. But just remember that, Tom, there's no wrong answers. They're all about personal preferences to yourself. So we'll move on to your first top three section. What are your top three Fulham goals?
They're always so difficult, these things, aren't they? Goal that springs to my mind first of all would be Paul Pesky-Salido in the Worthington Cup against Liverpool when he absolutely walloped one past Brad Friedel from about 35, 40 yards. And we went 1-0 up as like Division 2 Fulham at Premier League Liverpool with like Owen and Smeater and all the big names. And me and my dad were at that game, but we was in the Cop. We couldn't get away tickets. And I must have been about, I was only a kid, so what, 7, 8, something like that. And I remember going absolutely insane when Pes scored that goal because he was like a hero for me. And a little footballer who looked like he shouldn't be playing football because he was so small and he'd have but he'd send defenders for hot dogs all the time and, he'd just score brilliant goals and that goal just was unbelievable. And still to this day, it's probably one of the best goals that's ever been scored at Anfield. So I'd say that's probably, one of the three. Second, I'll probably say Simon Davies against Hamburg, where Danny Murphy played the ball over the top and he flicked it and he swiveled and then hit it and it went in and I think he got injured in the process. I'm telling you now, as most Fulham fans will echo, if Lionel Messi had scored that goal, we'd see it everywhere, every single year. But because Simon Davies scored it, we might see it retweeted by, the Europa League account every now and then. It was unbelievable. The control, the technique, and the pressure he was under in like 1-0 down, 70th minute or whatever it was, to get us back in the game. Unbelievable goal. Unbelievable goal. And then third goal, which obviously I'm sure everyone's probably said, but Tom Cairney at Wembley. That's it. I don't think that needs any more explanation, to be honest.
I think the Paul Pescalino goal is, and I've spoken about this before, but I'll happily speak about it again, is up there with, it's probably my favourite Fulham goal of all time. I was also at Anfield that night as a 10-year-old. I got a couple of days off school in order to go. And I was right at the back of the away end, right? And anyone who's been at the back of Liverpool's away end will know that you cannot see anything. So I didn't actually see him score. I see him shoot because that was literally all I could see. He was that far out that that's all I could see. But I didn't see it go in. right? I didn't see it going, but I absolutely loved Paul Pescicillo. In fact, I say loved. I still love Paul Pescicillo. He's an absolute legend. And you're right, he was small, but he was one of those tricky little players. And I think it was because he used to play indoor football, right? So I think it was just like he was quite tricky and quite wingy. It's like cage football now. You see sort of footballers that come in playing cage football, and they're always like tricky and nimble. And he was really tricky and nimble. So
Yeah.
I love that. Um, the Simon Davis goal against Hamburg, I think it literally has everything you ever ask someone to do to score a goal, because it had skill with the flick. It was a great finish, and he was brave because
Yeah.
he took a whack when he shot,
Yeah, he
like
did.
when he
Yeah.
shot that.
Yeah.
So I think like, the Simon Davis goal is probably is outstanding, and obviously, you know, the Wembley final goal is. We don't even need to speak about it, do we?
I will have
It's
to.
just
I was just going to say I will have to give an honourable mention to a goal because my dad will kill me if I don't. I was a mascot for Fulham versus Aston Villa when we was at Loftus Road, and when John Army scored that screamer from about 50 yards, his only ever goal for us in what was not a great career for him at Fulham. But I was a mascot that day, and I have cerebral palsy. So at the time, it was prior to my surgery, and I was sort of walking the way I was born or such. So I remember running out and seeing myself on the Premiership that night, and seeing a little lads, with palsy running out and just being quite proud. But my dad always takes credit for that John Arley goal because prior to the game, obviously, I had my picture taken with Sean Davis and met the players and stuff and all that. And prior to the game, my dad was speaking to John about the game and saying, just having a little chat. And then before, obviously, we're lining up to go out, he said, "Oh, good luck, John," and shook his hand. And to this day, my dad still takes credit for that John Arley goal. So I had to get that in before, otherwise my dad would be very upset that I'd not mentioned him.
That's an honourable mention. I see that goal. Such a shame we scored so many great goals at Loftus Road.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I know.
because my whole life, there's only ever been 2 years I've not had a season ticket at Fulham, right? And there was the 2 years we were at Loftus Road. Mainly because as a kid, sort of my auntie bought our season tickets, and she absolutely refused to go to Loftus Road. To the point where when I say she refused to go to Loftus Road, like she refused to go to Loftus Road, so we didn't go those 2 years. So I missed that goal. But I remember watching it on the Premiership and just being like, it didn't make any sense how he managed to score. And I was a
Yeah,
goalkeeper. I used to play football. I was a
yeah,
goalkeeper, right? So I was like, I was sat there the whole time going like, how's that gone in? How's the keeper?
yeah,
He's got 40 yards and about 50 hits it, not saved it. And then I remember
yeah.
seeing an angle from behind John Harley and the amount of dip and swerve on the
Yeah,
ball.
yeah, yeah.
I
It was
said,
like,
that's how we
wow, wow,
scored. It
wow,
was
wow, yeah, yeah, yeah,
so yeah, there's definitely a great mention there. So we'll move on to your next top three. Now the top three is obviously it's top three favorite kits. Now again, these can be top three favorite kits because of memory, because of style, because of victories in them. It can be absolutely anything down to you. There's many honourable mentions of other kits as well as you want, but what are your top three sort of favourite Fulham kits?
yeah. First of all, I think he's got to be the Demon Internet one under Sahar and Tigana and Barry and Bower. That season was just unreal. They were, it's if we hadn't done what we've done under Silver in the Championship, I still think that's probably our greatest ever Championship season under Tigana. And that kit was just so many memories for me. So Demon Internet, the home one. And then I'd probably say the Pete Talk one, just because it was our first year in the Premier League, and it obviously being a kid and being so long in like Nationwide Division 2 as it was and Division 1 and all my mates in the Premier League and stuff, and just finally being able to say we was in the Premier League and we was playing Man United, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, and we was playing them on par, and we deserved to be there. And obviously the season we had, it's not too dissimilar from the season we're in now. I like to think sometimes history repeats itself, and hopefully we can repeat that season and go on to do even better things this season because there's so many parallels with that season and this season in terms of the manager, the players we brought in, and the style of football, the way we've attacked the league. So that'd be my second kit, and then third, a kit that's just pops into my head that I don't think gets enough love, but I really loved it, was the Harrods Green away kit where Chris Baird scored 2 at Stoke in. I absolutely love that kit, and nobody else seemed to like it. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was so cool. And obviously, the fact that Bairdino scored 2 screamers in it on a rainy day at Stoke made it slightly cooler as well. But nobody ever seems to mention that kit, and I really liked it, so I'll give that kit some love as well.
Okay, so I'll go through your choices there, right? And I'm laughing because I'll get to the Harrods kit in a minute. The Demon Internet promotion winning shirt up to the Premier League is by far my favourite Fulham shirt of all time. Mainly because it's the first time as a kid seeing Fulham not just win, but we were so dominant that season, like
Yeah,
ridiculously
yeah,
dominant that season.
yeah.
Even you know playing Tottenham in the League Cup and winning,
Oh,
playing
brilliant game.
United in the playing United in the FA Cup and only just losing. Fabrice Fernandez scoring that absolutely
Yeah, yeah.
sensational free kick. Um, and I think it was the first time I ever sort of felt like we were on par with some teams. And when that United team came down, and then they played a strong. They were a strong team. They were
Oh,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
really good team, like one of the ultimate Man United teams. And we gave a proper good account of ourselves. And I remember on the Monday going into school, and I was allowed to wear my Fulham shirt in the school on Monday. I don't know if it was a mufti day or whatever it was. But I went in wearing my Fulham shirt, and it was one of the only times first time I remember going into school wearing a Fulham shirt on a mufti day, and no one said anything, like because they were just like there was no weird comments, there was no like people putting me down because of it, and I loved that shirt. That shirt is amazing. It had such a great away kit as well that year,
Oh,
but
yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
that home kit was it's just it fills me so many memories. Like I still have a that home shirt. I'm still lucky enough to have one of the original Adidas ones of that shirt. Doesn't fit me anymore because obviously it was my kit when I was 12 years old, but it's probably not fit me since I was like 13. But that's not the point. Like absolutely love that kit, and it's everything about that kit that I love. It's got my favorite badge on it. It's got my
Yeah.
favorite, some great memories in it. So yeah, I definitely agree. That's a great kit.
Well, I've still got that
When
kit
you
in like an extra in like a I don't know, it would have been like a 67, I suppose. And it was the kit where, when they re-released it and it had like the 2001 champions on it, like the little bit of text
yeah.
above the badge. And when it's at my nan's, and when I've got it out, it's the tiniest kit I've ever seen in my life. It's just mad to think how little I was at the time. And yeah, brilliant kit.
I wish I knew how popular football shirt collecting would have been then, because
Yeah,
I would have made my auntie or my dad buy it in an adult's medium rather than
yeah,
a
yeah,
kid's like
yeah,
a kid's size because it'd probably worth some money now.
yeah,
Um, like your second kit, obviously, you've gone for the Pizza Hut kit, which is absolutely iconic, not just as a Fulham shirt, but as a football shirt. It's an iconic football shirt. We've sort of had this shirt come up a few times on the pod so far, and I will openly admit that I prefer the away kit, the black and red striped, quite thick striped away kit for the Pizza Hut kit is my favourite of the two. But that home kit is iconic. Like not even just a case of, first year in the Premier League, we played really well in it. First time we're feeling like we're not just here to be a part of it. We actually belong to be in the Premier League, which is great. But I think it's just one of those kits that, as I say, as football fans around the world know that kit. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
such an iconic football shirt.
yeah.
And if you do a quiz where you say to 90% of Fulham football fans, not even Fulham fans, football fans, and you say, name me a shirt. If I should give you a shirt sponsor, tell me who that shirt belongs to, and you say Pizza Hut,
Yeah, yeah,
everyone will go
yeah.
automatically go, yeah, it's Fulham. I'll move on to the Harrods kit because I own that Harrods kit. I bought that Harrods kit when it came out, but hate that Harrods kit. It's just not a colour that I say that should be in for Fulham shirt. The only saving grace of that football shirt, is Chris Baird, and it's
I
literally
loved
just
it.
I
I
look at
thought
that
it
football shirt. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. In fact, I think my wife has worn that shirt more times than I've worn that shirt.
was fair enough.
Um, because I really don't like it. But I say Chris Baird absolutely saves that shirt in the sense that whenever I look at it, I'm reminded of that Stoke game
Yeah,
and Chris Baird being knighted as Berdinio, and
yeah.
so for that shirt alone, it's worthy. And obviously, as I say, there's no right or wrong answers in this. It's your top three. And there'll be the people who are sort of watching this can comment on whether or not they agree with you or they agree with me, or whether or not it's a great kit. But and obviously it's a personal preference. But I just didn't like that kit. I don't know why. It's up there with that kit. And a couple of years later, when we did the Johnny Haynes limited edition gold shirt that had the statue on it,
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
people seem to really, really like it, but I don't like it, and I don't know why. I think it might just be the color. It
Mm.
might just be the color. I just don't like gold on football shirts, but I think that's just a personal preference. All right, so we'll move on to your top three favorite Fulham games. So these can be again, they can be good victories. They can just be great memories or fond memories of who you were there with, or what happened during the game. Tom, give us your top three favorite games.
So my first game I'm going to go for is Manchester City away under Roy Hodgson when we were 2-0 down at half time, and then Joe Kamara came on and did his thing. Just that day as a whole is just a day that just lives in my mind. Because just for so many reasons, it was a typical Manchester day. It was wet, it was rainy. I went with my dad and my granddad. My granddad was singing Blue Moon before kick-off. And I kept telling him, no, granddad, stop singing it. It's not our song. Stop singing it. And he was like proper crooning Blue Moon. I was like, you're going to jinx it. Stop it. So he's like winding me up singing Blue Moon, like giving it the old Elvis croon and stuff like that. And then obviously we're 2-0 down at half time. And I'm like, right, this obviously I'm still only about 11 maybe, something like that. So I'm still like, oh, we're going down, it's happening, and I was getting real upset and stuff. And you know, my dad said, look, second half, Tom, we're always better second half. We'll turn it around. And he still says it to me now. To be fair, when I'm getting a bit mopey in the first half of games, now he says, oh, we've always been a second half team, Tom. Come on, you know that. But yeah, and obviously, just and the atmosphere that day from the Fulham men was one of the best away atmospheres I've ever experienced, and I've got so many like memories just ingrained in my mind of that comeback and Joe Kamara just turning into prime Ronaldo, and when that third goal went in, it was just unbelievable. And I managed to get on match of the day. Me and my dad and my granddad were on match of the day when Jimmy Bullard's taking a free kick. And during that third goal, somebody from the club must have spotted me and my granddad celebrating, and it was used as an advert for tickets on the official site, on the Fulham site, with me and my granddad advertising tickets as sort of like a family ticket.
Yeah,
So that game is forever immortalised for me, not just in terms of in my mind, but it's physically. There's a photo somewhere of me and my granddad on the Fulham website is an advert for a family ticket. So that game is definitely one of them. Just yeah, unbelievable game of football. Best away game I've ever been to by a country mile. Second game is it's quite self-explanatory, but Juventus at home. Little old Fulham taking down the most decorated Italian football team in Italian football history, and going down 1-0 down to a Trezeguet goal, and just we had no right to win that game, and we just did, and it was unbelievable. Like just never thought in my lifetime would I ever see us playing Europe, let alone be playing a quarter final against Italy's greatest ever team with Trezeguet up front and Diego and Del Piero walking across Craven Cottage. Alessandro Del Piero walking across Craven Cottage as a substitute, weren't even playing the game, and that Dempsey chip and just the whole shebang of it was just unreal. And that Dempsey chip still for me feels like something happened to time. Time just slowed down or something happened where that goal is just still dropping in now. It was unbelievable night, and the way Bobby Zamora had Cannavaro's pants down all game and got his sent off, and Zoltan Guerra was amazing, and just unbelievable football game. What a night! I've never experienced cottage like that before or since, to be honest. I think some of the maybe some of the playoff semi-finals were maybe close. I wasn't at a derby game, but was at Reading, but never experienced a cottage like that. It was unbelievable. Obviously, stand up if you still believe. Sort of started that night, and yeah, what a game! I could go on about that game for forever and a day, but obviously, we've got a bit of time limit, so I'll crack on to my next one, which will be Wembley, which is obviously a lot of people's favourite game, but for me and my family, it had extra significance. Really, it was a year to the day that my granddad had passed away. Exactly, and obviously we were very sort of umming and ahhing whether to go. Obviously, my nan being on her own for the first time since obviously a year since my granddad's passing, but we never got to Wembley since '75, and there was just so many factors on that day where I just knew we weren't going to lose that day. No matter what happened, we was not going to lose that game. And I took my granddad's scarf. My dad wore my granddad's wedding ring, I believe, and yeah, it was just a emotional, unbelievable day. And that day for me is still my lucky day because only sort of last year, the year before, well, or might be even this year, to be honest, it feels longer, but I passed my driving test on the exact same day, on the 26th of May. And obviously, we won at Wembley, and I passed my driving test. I wore a Fulham shirt for my driving test, the same shirt I wore at Wembley. And yeah, there was just no way on earth we were losing that day. And, wherever my granddad was on that particular day, he saw that game and he made sure we won that game. And, I don't often see my dad in tears, but we were in tears at that final whistle. And yeah, it's a day that will live with me for as long as I live. And even if I ever get married, I don't think it'll top that day. Yeah, just a special, special day, and one that means so much to me and my dad and my family as a whole.
Second, the Juventus game. Now, that Juventus game is one that's actually very, very special for me for many reasons. Growing up, I don't have many memories of sort of my dad and football. But one of the memories I always just have whenever I used to go to my dad's house on the weekends, football Italia, Sundays, like watching that. Juventus were massive. Like Juventus are I wouldn't say they're my Italian team, but Juventus are the team that I most love to follow, right? Mainly because I say I was a goalkeeper as a kid, and one of my footballing heroes is Edmund van der Sar, right? So, and obviously had first knowledge of him was obviously seeing him play in Italy for Juventus. So to see us play Juventus and not only play Juventus but beat Juventus was exceptionally special. And as you say, seeing Del Piero walk across the pitch, I can't even begin to imagine, explain how much I loved Alexandre Del Piero.
Yeah, same.
Even see him walk across the football pitch to see that. And the funny thing is, there's been many, many moments, right, where I've celebrated Juventus victories because they're my Italian team, as it was, right. But that night is always been special. I think it's one of the even the other big victories during that European run. None of them sort of compared to that Juventus game for me. And as you say, the Dempsey goal that felt like it took about 45 years to go in. I always say that I aged 5 years with that ball being in the end. I was sat in the hemisphere right behind it. So I was sort of behind the post where he was chipping it towards. So, and at first when he sort of hit it, I thought it was going wide, and then he sort of see it slowly going in.
Yeah.
And then it went in, and then everyone just sort of completely losing it around you. And it's one of the only times I remember the atmosphere at the cottage being as sort of crazy as it was. And obviously the semi-final, it was just as great like the whole way through, but the atmosphere that night was just astonishing. And I think when people try to explain to people how magic Craven Cottage is, especially in evening games, right, midweek
Yeah,
evening games,
yeah.
they'll never ever compare to me to those European games because
Yeah,
they were just so special. So I fully think that's a great choice. And Wembley, I think all of us have very poignant reasons for why Wembley is exceptionally was exceptionally important to us, right? And obviously, I'm really sorry to hear about your granddad and it being an anniversary for your granddad. But like you, I honestly believe he would have been there watching down and that going in, right? One of my most important influences as being a Fulham fan was my auntie Frida. Now, my auntie Frida took over taking me to football when I was 6 years old. She bought my season tickets when I was 6 until I was 17, right? And she's probably the reason why I'm such a massive Fulham fan. She took us to home games, she took us to away games, and one of the only times after a victory, there was this really surreal moment at full time, right, where there was 4 or 5 minutes of being I was absolutely celebrating because we just been promoted back to the Premier League, but then there was this really odd moment where because there was a whole chunk of my family, we all sat with each other, like there was like 10 of us all sat with each other, where it got really silent around us, where we were all thinking of my auntie because she wasn't there. So I get how special that was, and there'll be Fulham fans watching this and listening to this that have similar stories of fans that are no longer with us and sort of remembering them at that time. But it's one of the only times I've ever had it where um, the moment sort of stopped for a minute, and it was all that she was properly all I could think about. And then I got back to celebrating, remembering that she would have been going absolutely nuts herself. So I think that you're it's such a nice thing to obviously you take your granddad's scarf and stuff like that. So I think there'll be loads of Fulham fans that have sort of similar stories because it was such a special day. So um, I think that's great. We'll move on to your final top threes, which is your top three moments and memories as a Fulham fan. Now, these don't have to be match based. They can just be moments around games. They could be completely non-match day related. They could just be sort of any memory to do with Fulham that's exceptionally personal or important to you. So, what are your top three favourite Fulham moments / memories?
Well, I've covered a lot of them already, to be honest, in the games and in some of the goals as well. But obviously, a Fulham memory for me was being a mascot, and obviously I get the Villa game. And like I said, I have cerebral palsy, so at the time it was prior to my major surgery, and seeing a little lad walk out and run out the way. I used to run and have a kickabout with Andy Melville and stuff, and that's a special moment for me. Another special moment that sort of popped in my head is when we beat United for the first time under Chris Coleman. Um, I wasn't at the game. I was at my late nan's, who is my mum's mum. So she's very much from Warrington and the northwest, and never really had much interest in Fulham. And obviously, knew my dad was from Fulham and his family were from Fulham and stuff. But I remember listening to that game at my nan's in near where I live, and I remember jumping on a sofa, celebrating the Inamoto goal. And she was always one of those people when I was like, things don't matter, people do. And I remember her coming over and just celebrating with me when Inamoto scored that third goal, and like just the smile on her face and stuff, and sort of like jumping up and down me and stuff, and I'm just going mad on her sofa and chucking pillars in the air and stuff, and yeah, that's one that's literally just come back to me as you asked me the question, so I'll say that as well, and then obviously another game I've not mentioned, but was very privileged to be at, was the Europa League final. That is obviously a slightly unhappy memory because of the way that went, and Diego Forlan breaking our hearts. But to see Fulham in a major European final again, similar to Wembley, similar to the European games as a whole, I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. And the fact that we took over Hamburg around the Reeperbahn and we was just all having a great time, and there was Fulham fans on the statues, there was Fulham flags everywhere, there was little old Fulham in a European final, and yeah, it was just a surreal thing. And I remember I was in college at the time, and my college weren't going to let me go because it was during the exam period, and I was like, well, I'm going. I said, I'm not missing this. You know, it's not like Liverpool or Man United or whoever who get to finals all the time. This will be my only chance to see us in the final. I said, I'm not missing this. And luckily enough, I only found this out actually sort of a couple of days before. The vice principal at my college, I had to go and see obviously about trying to get time off for the game because it was obviously the college weren't going to let me go and I was adamant I was going. So I remember going in and sitting down with him and saying, look, his name is Matthew. I said, look, Matthew, this is important for me. This is massive. I've got to be there. I think my dad had already bought tickets anyway. And he was like, okay, no, all right, I get what you're saying, but obviously we got to think about exams. And he was saying obviously all this sort of spiel that was making me think I weren't gonna go. So obviously I was getting more and more gutted as he was talking. And then just out of nowhere, he just went, right, okay, you can go, but on one condition though. I was like, what? What? I'll do anything. He was like, as long as you buy me a program, because I'm a Fulham fan too. I was like, oh my god, what? My vice principal was a Fulham fan in Warrington. How did I not know this? So yeah, he let me go if I bought him a program, and I was true to my word. I bought him a program, and yeah. So thank you very much, Matthew, for letting me go that Europa League final.
Yeah, I think that I they're obviously great moments, as you say that the the Europa League final. So I've spoken about it before on the pod. Like it's really bittersweet for me because I didn't go. I didn't have. I couldn't afford to go at the time, and I was like, remember being that absolutely devastated that I couldn't go. So I think that for me, I'm probably one of the only Fulham fans that obviously I'm not happy that we didn't win, but I think I'm not upset that we didn't because it would have killed me if we had done. But I think that absolutely astonishing moments to be a Fulham fan and stuff like that. That was, again, same as seeing Fulham play at Wembley is just up there as absolutely amazing. Going back to you being a ball boy and sort of pre-op cerebral palsy and stuff like that. And I have a cousin who also has cerebral palsy, right? So I know sort of how brave that is to do that as a person. Obviously, being a Fulham loving a boy and stuff like that is a bit different. But I know how brave it is to sort of have the courage to go out in front of 20,000 people and to walk out to celebrate. So that must be such an absolutely amazing sort of memory in terms of sort
Yeah, yeah,
of like
absolutely, yeah.
it's one of those days where I imagine you sort of remember most of it.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just
Like
kind of cool.
like you say, the only shame is it was at Lotford Road. It would have been it would have been absolutely amazing to be a mascot of the cottage, but obviously the time and the play and the time and the place we was at Loftus Road, and I remember the week before or a couple of weeks before, my mum and dad kept asking me who my favourite Fulham players were, and I was like, "What are they asking me this for?" Like, they know I just love all of them. So I'd say like one week it'd be Steve Finnan, then I'd say Sean Davis, then I'd say Steve Malbronk, then I'd say Louis Sahar, and I was just thinking, why do they keep asking me who my favourite players are here? What's going on? And obviously I found out I was going to be a mascot, and I remember we all went down. So my mum, my dad, my sister, my granddad, and I remember another thing from that game is my sister was wearing my old uh, Division One away kit, and it had Sahar on the back. Number 20 Sahar on the back. I remember, obviously, we just come out of obviously meeting the players in the changing room and having my photo taken with. I decided on Sean Davis on the day, so I had my photo taken with Sean Davis and stuff. But I remember Louis Sahar came out of the changing room and he saw my little sister who was absolutely tiny at the time. Like, obviously, I think just past being a toddler, I'd say, but obviously she was really small and she had this little top on that looked too big for her and it had Sahar on the back. And I remember he just sort of tapped on the shoulder and turned around and said, obviously, "Oh, Sahar," or whatever, and he gave her a little kiss on the cheek. And I'd never seen her go so bright red in my life. He gave her just this little kiss on the cheek and was like, give her a little clap and stuff wearing a Sahar shirt. So yeah, and like I say, I obviously didn't realise it at the time, but looking back, um, even if it wasn't just for me, but for other kids potentially at the time that might have had cerebral palsy, to see a little boy run out the way I used to run, and we've clearly not, I hate the word, but clearly not running like everybody else or running normally. And, to run out with the players and to keep up with Andy Melville and to be passing the ball around and for just, just for that sheer fact, I know of, obviously, I don't know him personally, but I know of Dan Crawford on Twitter, who obviously, speaks a lot about his palsy as well. And, even if another kid, whether it was a Villa fan, a Fulham fan, or just another kid watching the Premiership that night with palsy, saw me run out and thought, actually anything's possible for me. I can do whatever I want. And looking back at it now, when I'm 30, and obviously, there's a long time passed since. It's still a major sort of achievement, I suppose, and a major positive in my life that I did that. And I still have, like I say, I can still have that picture in my head of that Premiership intro, and then it get into the Fulham game and seeing little old me run out with Andy Melville and stuff. And yeah, it was a great day. And I remember Olaf Melberg as well. I was waiting for the players to come out, and I was diddy, like really tiny. And I was remembering for like Andy Melberg to come out and obviously hold his hand and stuff. And Olaf Melberg came out screaming his head off, absolutely like the loudest man I've ever heard in my life. And I was terrified of him. I was absolutely terrified because he was like proper giving it an old, Swedish Viking like war cry essentially. And I just remember thinking, oh my god, this is terrifying. And then obviously Andy Melville came out and was like, really good with me and stuff. But yeah, it was a really special memory and something that I look back with fondly on. Yeah.
That's great, mate. The only thing I'm going to add to that is that saying that you're proud that you kept up with Andy Melville is not really any claim. He was really bloody slow by that time. So
Well,
I
listen,
think
mate.
I think almost everybody, I think almost everybody can get up with Andy Melville. So
Well,
I
anyway, I
wouldn't. I
kept
wouldn't.
pace anyway.
All right, mate. Right, so we're going to move on to the last section, which for everyone who sort of watched the show before is the FFC Cult Hero Hall of Fame. I'll just go through who we got already in there. So already inducted into the Hall of Fame is AK-47, Paul Pescadillo, Chris Baird, Roger Brown, and George Best. I already know from talking to you before you wanted to enter somebody who has already been entered into the Cult Hero Hall of Fame. So rather than giving somebody a second entrant, um, you're going to give me a new one. So who is your entrant into the FFC&Me Cult Hero Hall of Fame?
My cool hero is Simon Davis. I think for me, along with players like Brian McBride and those type of players that we've had over the years, Simon Davis for me just epitomises everything brilliant about Fulham. Understated, classy, and brilliant at what he does. He was such an underrated winger. That season, the season sort of under like Sanchez and under Roy, like he was probably one of the best wingers in the league because he consistently put the ball in the box for McBride or whoever was in there to just score, and he was so unselfish as well. And you think of the goals he scored that he doesn't get recognition for how good they were. The final goal against Madrid, beating I know De Gea was in his youth at the time, but beating De Gea with a volley and the Hamburg goal and the goal he scored against Spurs and the free kick he scored at Sunderland, he scored some amazing goals, and he's one of them for me that was just in a quite a obviously as a Fulham fan of my age, we haven't had many dark times, but in that period, under the back end of Coleman and Sanchez, and then obviously, staying up under Roy, he was a shining light, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. And also, as you can tell by this video, I've got incredibly curly hair, and seeing a winger with also incredibly curly hair just running up and down, flopping about, and yeah, my mates in college used to call me Simon and stuff, and when we played five-a-side and that, I'd be Simon Davis, and they'd call me the Welsh Wizard and stuff like that. So I just think he's one of them that just for me, like Brian McBride and like just some of the players we've had over the past couple of years and over the time I've been supporting Fulham, just epitomises everything we're brilliant at and everything we're about as a football club. He was just a really understated, wonderful footballer who never really wanted individual accolades or was, wanting to be in the spotlight. But he was just a brilliant footballer, a brilliant technical footballer who doesn't get the credit he deserves. I don't think so. Yeah, for me, Simon Davis.
I'm going to fully agree with you. He's an absolutely worthy entrant into the Cult Hero Hall of Fame because he isn't always the player that shouted out the loudest when you think of the teams he was a part of. Yes, he scored some absolutely amazing goals, but away from his goals, his work rate was second to none as a player, and I genuinely was really really excited that's the summer when we signed him. I was so excited about him as a signing. I've seen him play for Tottenham a few times, right? And he always impressed me. He was one of those players that whenever you see him play, he always impressed me. And so I was super excited when we signed him, and then to see him come in and still perform at the level that he did for Fulham was just exceptional. So Simon Davis is an absolutely worthy entrant into the Cult Hero Hall of Fame. So Tom, before we leave, mate, I'm just gonna say thank you very much for spending the time with us, getting to know you. Has been absolutely great. Everyone who's sort of watching or listening to this, please let us know whether or not you agree with Simon Davis being entered into the Cult Hero Hall of Fame. Or I don't think many people are going to disagree. Being honest with you, like and share the show, please. Everyone who has liked the show so far, that's great. Thank you very much. We're doing really well. We're growing the show, so if anyone can share and save and send it out, sort of share it with your mates to help us grow, that would be great. Our aim is to sort of get to about 500 views and streams per episode by the end of next month if we can. So thank you again. So Tom, thank you again for your time, mate. This has been FFC&ME, and it's been great to meet you.
No problem, Max. Absolute pleasure, mate. See you later.